Welcome, everyone. This is the March meeting of Farmland Preservation. I'm Michael Blank, President. And with me tonight are Dennis Stedman, Vice President and Acting Secretary, Dan Bonkoski, the Treasurer. You do a little wave there, Dan. And also Sean Carney, member, Sean, and George Hines, member. And welcome, everyone. Okay, without any further ado, why don't we jump right into approval of our minutes from our February meeting. Dennis?
Sure. The February 15th minutes were circulated and reviewed. Are there any additional comments or edits relative to what was distributed? Hearing none, I would make a motion that they be approved as presented.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. The minutes are approved. And Mike, back to you.
Thank you, Dennis. We'll move on to our treasurer's report now. I'll turn it over to Dan.
So we want to talk about a review around our investments and performance on those investments and some of the methodology that we have in place and what we've decided on in the past for the split and the allocation between equities and bonds. I sent you guys an email just a little bit ago. So I realized that you may not have wandered into our meeting folder to see the files directly. So Mike, if you want, do you want me to share these? I can share on my screen the files as we walk through. I got two files.
Yes.
Just wanted to walk through, point some stuff out. I think it's not all that complicated here at this point, really.
Okay, if you would, please.
All right, you guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So this is just a print off from the Fidelity website. So those of you out there in the public domain watching this, we're now using Fidelity to manage all of our investments. You'll see here this, where's that annotate thing at? There we go. You see, is that better?
Yep.
So here in early 2019 is when we first contributed dollars to this new account. We had moved over a chunk of money from Fidelity. And then here in July 2020, we moved the remainder of those assets from Vanguard that were under self-directed Vanguard assets over to Fidelity. So now everything remains over here at Fidelity. This light blue you'll see is pure just cash as it was sitting there if you were not invested at all. And then this is showing the balances, this darker blue. So you'll see where we have the dark blue above the light blue is our appreciation and our performance in these funds. So I gotta get rid of that, I guess. Maybe that's not a good idea. I don't know how to get rid of that though.
Back on the little pencil thingy.
There we go. There we go. I'll try to click my down arrow. All right. This is, you'll see a similar, the second file that we're going to look at is what Fidelity generates as the performance review. And we'll see this again there. But there was something specific that I wanted to pull through here to show you. This is the top account is our managed account. The second account is our cash account. So of course, we're not really seeing any performance there. It's just sitting in cash and it's a relatively minor amount of cash. The top account is showing the performance. And you'll be able to see a little bit more detail in the other one, but inception to date, it's 10.96%. Year to date, 4.92 combined. So call it call it 4.92 compared to over 1 year, right? This is a 1 year from the 18th, or actually it looks like here it says as of 2/28. So backwards 12 months from 2/28. Our performance was 4.89 as compared to this benchmark here that you'll see at 4.02 that I've highlighted. That benchmark is 60% stocks. Our current allocation is 60% stocks, 40% bonds. We are over the benchmark because we didn't make that switch until July last year. So we had the earlier part of last year where we were heavier weighted into stocks, which increased the performance that much more. So if you look back just a 1 year, calendar year backwards, that's why our performance is a little bit better than what the benchmark is. Of course, you'll see these other, the S&P over that same time period, 16%.
Just a comment, Dan, that we're coming up on, it'll be nice to see the 3-year performance, which we're coming up to pretty soon here in May.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Give me just a second. This one has a little bit more. This is the report that, again, both of these files are in our meeting folder. So you can, if you want to take a look later and go through any more detail, or we can chat later too. So, I can run this, or Mike, you can run this too at any given point in time. So if anyone wants anything at any point in time, just say so and we'll run this. So this kind of talks about a little bit of, where we are in the marketplace right now. But what I want to get into is here. So what they're doing is they're showing some details around performance, 1 year performance, and also as it relates to just Q4 performance as well. Just kind of some backdrop then for when they get into what actual performance is for our account. And here we go. So this is looking at monthly beginning balance, market change, so appreciation, depreciation, actual cash inflows, dividends and interest, actual deposits, contributions to the account, and withdrawals. So 20,000, this doesn't go back to our deposits. I'm sorry, this is actually looking at our investment account only. This does not include our cash account. So we do not see our rent deposits being captured here, or our regular withdrawals for our expenses. The only thing that we're seeing here is $20,000 as a withdrawal from our investment account last year, when we, and which was just to replenish our cash account for expenses. This is just showing, again, a shorter time frame, a 1 year time frame, the performance over time, if it was just sitting in cash then, over that same time period, is the light blue. All right, what I really want to get to though, so this is showing the same performance, our 4.92 over 1 year, 10.96 over inception to date from when we started the account. And lastly, here we go. Current asset allocation. So wanted to talk about this for a moment and get everyone's thoughts. So I misspoke. I said July earlier. It was June last year where we changed from 70% stocks to 60% stocks, and the balance being in bonds. So we had a lot of back and forth and a lot of discussion when we made that decision to change from 70-30 to 60-40. So prior to this, when it was the 70% stocks, this was under Fidelity's classification of a growth portfolio. When we changed this to 60%, their classification, what they call this, is a growth with income. Prior to our 70% stocks, going back even to when we were self-directed, we were, call it 80%. And I think going back, George and Dennis and Sean, I think, or at least I think Dennis and Sean are aware, going back even further in time, we were even more aggressive growth, and we were 80% plus at one point in time in stocks versus bonds. I think our general consensus over this time period, over the last 3 years, was decreasing the risk that we have in the portfolio. Yes, we are long-term focused, and that would allow us in theory to be more aggressive, but we do think there could be situations where we would have meaningful expenditures. Wanted to factor that into the equation. We were starting to increase our spending on a year-to-year basis, especially as it related to maintenance. We wanted to be just in general more conservative. While this is not a retirement account, it's not somebody's individual account where you might be willing to take on more risk. Our consensus was that we wanted to reduce some of the risk. We're a nonprofit. Like I said earlier, yes, maybe we don't have big expenditures. Generally speaking, our investment income each year plus our rent income more than covers all of our expenses that we have each year.
So Dan, a question that I have is, with the recent change in the Fed's up in the interest rates, how does that affect, if anything, what we might want to do with respect to the mix between stocks and bonds?
So that is a good question, and I'll give you my take. So first, part of my take is, my opinion here is, we have decided that we're going to use Fidelity to manage our accounts, right? And we are longer term focused, but yet we're not playing the market, right? We are not, going up and down and making random changes or moving assets around or picking and choosing different mutual funds or reallocating. Fidelity is managing this allocation for us, this split for us. They're choosing the underlying investments. They're making those investment decisions based on guidance from us. So, George, what we did back then was we went through a series of questionnaires with them, went through our income, went through our expenses, went through risk tolerance. They are the ones that recommended to us 60% stocks that we ended up ultimately going with. And I just want to point that out because we've given over to them some of the decision making for us, right? It was their recommendation to go with this growth with income approach. So I don't think we should do anything. I think we leave it as is, and I think it stays as is. I don't think that we should be making changes based on shorter term market movements. Fidelity will do that themselves. So while they say 60% stocks, if you look over here, you'll actually see that it's at 65% at this point in time that I ran this. That's because two things. One, markets continuously move. And then what they do is they will buy and sell as appropriate and when appropriate to go back to or get closer back to a 60% stock allocation. But they're not required to keep it at 60% and 60% flat. They have some latitude and some leeway to kind of let that go up and down a bit here and there with a small, a small variation, a small couple percentage points based on where they think markets are and what's happening. But they will make some allocations, probably smaller and around the edges as they see fit given the current market environment.
And George, just for your, that's exactly, very well stated, Dan, and that's exactly why we went with Fidelity and asked them to manage our money, because we're not professional money managers.
Right. And that explanation really helps, Dan. I appreciate that. And it makes perfectly good sense to me. I just wanted to try to understand some of the background piece of it.
Yeah.
Dan, two points. One, I agree. We decided to become more conservative with the 60% allocation because we do have a long-term focus, but there was also an emphasis, and this is, I think, a key word for this organization: preservation of cash, preservation of assets, I should say. We have a long-term focus, but we do want to preserve our assets like we preserve farmland. The second point is with about a 65% in stocks now, should we ask our advisor if it's time for them to do a rebalance? Do you just count on them to do that rebalancing?
They do it very regularly.
On a routine basis. So
yes.
Okay.
We don't need to prompt them to do it. They definitely do it on a routine basis. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
They're very active. I mean, Dan, you probably see the sells and buys. They're fairly active, not in large chunks, but
yeah. I was actually going to see if I can quickly pull up like the last date here, if I can see it quickly, maybe.
And while you do that, Dan, I wanted to bring up a point that I've been in discussions with Fidelity about personally with my investments, and that is Russia. Fidelity is one of the only companies that has not to date taken a stand on investing in Russia, and I see this as a social responsibility issue. They maintain, and it's true, that they have that we in our accounts and all of their clients have a very low exposure to Russian stocks, 0.0 something. But I think it's more a matter of principle. And I think that I wonder what the other board members feel. I think that if in any way that we as a nonprofit could make a statement to them and add our voice that we don't think it's the right thing to be investing in Russia right now. And I'm sure, Sean, I'm sure you have a comment on this too. I wonder how others feel about that. I feel pretty strongly about it.
I can say I don't think that, with all due respect, I don't think they need to hear from us to invest or to not invest in Russia after the recent events. I think that's more of a headline risk from the umbrella of Fidelity than it is from anything else. I mean, I would assume those numbers that you're quoting are active holdings. Obviously, there is another side of the equation, which are passive holdings of Russia, which, in ETFs and things like that are investment decisions you make in a completely different manner. But on the active side, yes, I'm sure that there are very little to no holdings. And I would assume it will probably stay that way and probably go down as the dollar price of all of those investments falls drastically.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Just thought I'd bring it up.
I didn't, unless if it's I didn't have a comment on that unless if somebody else did on Russia.
Okay.
No, I think to George's question, when he asked what the Fed's decision will do, I think the most obvious to me is just that we're going to earn more on our cash on the gross side as the Fed is going to raise interest rates rather rapidly. We'll earn more on the cash portion of our portfolio, but there will be a point in time where the stock market will not like the level of the bond market, and we will benefit from having a closer to 50-50 mix like we have now, stocks to bonds, as opposed to be significantly overweight one or the other, would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think these risks are why you have, it's all about the balanced portfolio. You're not trying to second guess any particular move, interest or stock or anything else. Keep a balanced portfolio in the long-term view. And try to stay out of the short-term gyrations, because that's usually where you lose. I'm happy with where we are, and Dan, I appreciate your going through this on occasion as you do, because it's obviously a important responsibility, and I feel good with where we are.
Dennis, to answer your question about how often is Fidelity looking at this? So they have made adjustments to the portfolio twice in January, twice in February, and twice so far in March.
Okay.
Going back earlier than that, it wasn't quite as regular. Twice in December, once November, once October, once September, 3 times in July last year.
Okay.
And these changes that you speak of and any rebalancing that they do, they're doing them within the sleeves, the equity sleeve, the fixed income sleeve, but they do not have the ability to change that mix of 60-40.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Rebalance. So okay. Got it. Rebalancing to me would be rebalancing a percentage of equity to stock, as long as the movements that they're making and the trades that they're doing are within their respective sleeves.
It's all within the mandate that they have from us, which is 60-40.
But there might be a plus or minus 5%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And anything?
So we last discussed this, in detail in June last year. It's March this year. I think twice a year is probably the appropriate timeline that we, have a discussion like this.
Yeah.
So, Mike, if you want to think about that as we come up to whatever, September, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We'll do that. We just say that that's an excellent rundown. I really appreciate it, Dan. Well laid out and explained.
And you know what? They may. So we've been with Fidelity for close to 3 years. I think we've had 2 formal discussions with them around our asset allocation strategy. But they do reach out on a regular basis. So I wouldn't be surprised if they reach out at some point over this summer to reconfirm our strategy anyways. We could always actively do that. I don't think we need to at this point in time, but they're likely to reach out to us to reconfirm as well at some point too this year.
I think it's a minimum of a yearly review and sometimes twice. Yeah. Okay. Any, Dan, you're good?
Yep, nothing else.
Any further comments on Dan's report?
Thanks for doing it, Dan.
Yeah. Okay, moving along. Move on to Sean. Update on Corcoran Landscaping winter jobs.
All right. So, for background, we have Matt Corcoran Landscaping contracted for 10 winter days and approximately 8 hours a day to do our winter projects. We laid them out in our spreadsheet, in our shared file, project list for Corcoran Landscaping. As you know, there have been a couple of changes, but let's go over it. And also, I'll just set the stage. I'm meeting with Matt on Thursday morning here at my house to go over a couple of things. So this might not be the full report, but I'll give you everything I have. The top item was 1491 Heather Ridge Drive. That's on Farm Heather Ridge. Dan had highlighted this one. Cut down 3 dead and dying trees. I just passed the driveway on 1491 Heather Ridge Drive. That is complete and done. Dan, you agree?
All right, one thing. When I looked on Sunday night, the trees were cut down. I think they did a pretty good job about cutting that very close to the ground. The stumps were not grinded out. I don't know if we had an expectation that they were going to grind those stumps or not. I'm just curious, but if you recall anything about that.
We never discussed the stumps. If you want me to ask him to grind them out, I'm sure he'd send Lance over there to do it, but it was never our request.
I think they look fine.
Okay.
I don't think it's an eyesore or anything, but unless if anyone else has an issue with it.
About how far off the ground are they?
I think the backside of the stump, because it's on a little bit of a slope. I think the backside is probably only a matter of a couple inches, and the front side is 6 inches, maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
My recollection, but
Other than that, I wouldn't have any further comment.
Dennis, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Is it a hazard or inconvenience for the mowing or trimming in the area is my question.
I don't think it's a hazard or an inconvenience.
Okay.
How about this? If anybody drives by there in the next day or two, I'm working from home Thursday. I may swing by. If anybody drives by there and wants them grinded out, please shoot me a text. We'll be kind of, and I'll go into it in a moment. We'll kind of be negotiating some time with Matt here. So if anybody wants that on the list, let me know. 1775 to 1777 Greenbrier Court. That was on Farmview 1. Buffer clean out behind those homes. That is done. I would say that Corcoran Landscaping spent a lot of time on that farm cleaning up some problem areas, those of which we're all aware of, behind different homes. Many truckloads of things removed. So more time spent there than originally thought, but undoubtedly did us a lot of favors on that farm. Dan and I have walked it. It looks very good.
We had
14,
go
ahead.
Two reactions from 2 homeowners there that were all very, very positive.
Yes, very happy to see somebody back there cleaning it up. 1449 Heather Ridge Drive, buffer area needs to be addressed behind the home, done, all cleaned out. I haven't had eyes on, but Dan, this was on your farm, spoke to Matt yesterday. They spent a lot of hours there cleaning that up. Elevated trees, cleaned out the buffer area. Again, we're a little bit short on time because of the amount of time they spent there and some add-ons that we gave him. But as of now, I have it on my done list unless I'm told otherwise. Dennis, the one we have not gotten to, Makefield Brook and Brentwood Road.
Okay.
It was a yellow buffer area, needs some attention from overgrowth. I honestly think we'll either have to pay for this at summer rates, or it becomes job 1A for the winter time. I'll take your advice on how bad it is. I don't know if you're getting neighbor complaints or exactly how it was brought to your attention.
No, we have not had any neighbor complaints, and I think we prioritized it right. I haven't been there for some months, but unless there's been a change, I think it can wait till next, like you say, be top of the list next
Yes.
winter. But I'll walk that in the next month or so to be sure that that's accurate. But I think we're probably all right.
Okay, excellent. And then I'll come back because there might be a fix for that as well.
Okay.
Near corner of Dolington Road and Fairfield Road, Bethel, Dan brought this up, clean up the vines hanging from the tree in the middle of the field. I think everybody would agree driving by that is a much prettier picture today than I've ever seen it. I thought they did a very nice job clearing that out. Leadham's buffer has not been touched. Negotiating that one. Stackhouse Farm buffer has not been touched and will not be touched. Sunnyside Lane was completely cleaned up. Very nice job back there. Went well beyond what we had expected and anticipated. The reason that Leadham's and Stackhouse have not been touched, we added on 1491 Heather Ridge. There was tree work that needed to be done there. Both, as you remember, those neighbors had a large tree taken down that we discussed months ago. They had some additional work that needed to be done. I know Mike and Dan were out. I was out. We highlighted trees that we would be responsible for and take care of. The neighbors at the same time, the residents of the home, wanted additional trees taken down at their own expense, but to clean up the area. Matt finished that job yesterday, both our responsibility and the homeowners, which was a completely separate tab that they're taking care of. Apparently did a very nice job cleaning it all out. There is still some more work to be done there. I'd like to maybe put it on the 23 list. It'll be a lower priority given how much time was already spent there, a full day on that area. But it's a pretty, it got to be kind of an ugly area. I can say that while Matt was there, the farmer did come out, speak with him, drove him around, very friendly, happy to see things going on in that portion of the woods. So, very nice to see. So as Dan said, the neighbor feedback has been great in the buffer area where we've done clean out. This was a nice project to have off our list. And then the other, we had a large tree come down on Longshore behind 1473 Merrick Road. It was brought to our attention by Tom Carney, who informed us of the tree. It is a very big tree that came down. The picture does it no justice. If you drive down Dolington, you will see this tree. You can't miss it. Matt has not gotten to it yet. We need to discuss what we want to do with this. We're about out of our hours. Some of them, he is sitting down. He unfortunately had to run to Florida for a funeral. He'll be back on Thursday, which is when we're meeting. We're about out of hours. We don't have enough hours to take care of that tree. Rough estimate is it's about $1,000 tree to have removed. We're up against it in time, given that the farmers are going to need to start planting in early to mid-April. He's going to remove it. Don't get me wrong. It's just a matter of he can come and do Leadham's farm a quick cleanup of the buffer area, get it started the right way. He basically said, I can come and do that. That was something on your guys' list we didn't get to. I should do that one. The Stackhouse there wasn't time for, but the tree itself that's down is something that we need to discuss monetarily. The rough estimate is about $1,000 tree to have that removed.
So Sean, I guess my question, this is George. If it was a different time of year where all the Corcoran work was done anyway and the tree came down, what kind of decision would we make? I mean, if the tree has to be removed and taken care of, we would just take care of it, correct?
But there is no doubt we have to take care of it. I just read in the bylaws that I, as a member of the board, don't have the authority to grant something greater than like $50 or something. So it's a discussion of us, and I need someone like Mike or Dan or Dennis to say, yes, give them permission to get that tree out of there. I can't make that decision. That's why I'm presenting it this way.
So it's not a question of dollars. It's not a question of doing the work. It's really, you're just requesting permission from the committee to go forward with it if we all think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah, what I don't want to happen is Dan gets a bill for $11,000 from Corcoran instead of 10, because 10 is allocated to us for the winter jobs. He warned me that tree is not going to fit with inside the winter hours. It's a full day of workers getting rid of that tree. He did indicate to me he was able to save us some money this year in that he was working for the township for a couple of jobs, and then at the same time kind of working for us on nearby jobs. So in the instance where we had discussed him taking and dumping at the township on days where he was working for them in the morning, us in the afternoon, or us in the morning, them in the afternoon, he was able to go and make a couple of rounds of this kind of in conjunction. So instead of us getting tabbed each time, he took a truckload and we were able to save there, which was good. It's great, that we have that mutual connection with the township, with Corcoran. But I just wanted to give a warning that tree is going to fall outside the 10 days and just that there would be an additional bill for that.
So Sean, my thought is that we should get that tree cleaned up. Part of it is in the field, as I understand it, not just the buffer, right?
I would go the other way. It's in the farm. It's barely in the buffer.
Yeah.
So it fell from that island of trees towards 1473 Merrick Road. It's in the farming area, and then it gets close enough that we could consider some of it in the buffer area. But it's in the farm. It's in the farming land.
Well, that's why I would favor, and maybe we just take a vote on it. I would favor, we need to get it out of there so Sam and Tim can plant.
Yeah, agreed.
I think keep it entirely out of the winter hours and consider it a separate side project is my thought.
Okay. And one last thing, there's an island of trees there. It's ugly, but I did tell him if it makes it quicker, easier, less expensive, some of the bigger stuff he cuts up, it's okay if that stays in that island area. All the big, huge stuff that's going to take a long time to move doesn't have to come out and be trucked out of there. It's too big for a chipper. Some stuff can go back in there. That's perfectly acceptable. Didn't all have to come out. And he said that would certainly save him some time. He was certain he could do it in a day then with that. And I just want to make sure everybody is okay with that.
Yeah, I think leaving some of that inside those woods makes perfect sense. I think as George and others have said, we have to remove the tree. That's kind of a non-question. The real issue for me is if it's an extra $1,000 above and beyond what we thought we would be doing in the buffers, are there some lower priority buffer things that we should maybe hold off on that we intended to do in light of this unforeseen expense? And if there's a
So
way
we've already cut out
push off.
Stackhouse.
Okay.
Stackhouse Farm cleanup of buffer area for maintenance is removed. However, Mike, I don't have the agenda in front of me, so shame on me. I tried to pull it up and it's spinning. Do we have anything on the agenda for us to discuss Dennis and I's conversation with the farmers about the buffer areas or no?
No, we don't. We had held that out to executive session, but we can bring it up. But just let me.
I thought I would bring that up under it will come up under the spring tour topic.
Okay, so Dennis will bring it up. Good. So let's get this tree issue on Longshore taken care of. So do we have consensus that well, first of all, let me make sure I understand. So for $1,000, he's going to take off most of the tree, take all of it off, leave anything on the field, leave some stumps and big stuff in the woods. That's still $1,000.
Yes, in practice. I just don't want $1,000 to be the exact number. It was about $1,000.
Okay.
Mr. Corcoran was getting home to hop on a plane to fly out to Florida for a funeral. Okay. I caught him in enough time where he could talk to me, but we discussed that tree. He said, Sean, that's going to be about $1,000 job, and we're out of hours. He said, I am going to come do lead-ins because I told you I was going to do that, but that takes us past the hours. I'm only going to bill you for the 10 days. That tree falls outside. I said, give me a rough estimate. He said, it's about $1,000. It could be 900. It could be 11. I say let's use $1,000.
Okay. So assuming it will be $1,000 to do what you stated, I'll make a motion that we give Corcoran the go ahead to take care of that tree when he's able.
Second.
All in favor?
Can I just add a caveat just to say, right, they come back with something different because you were pretty specific there, Mike, about $1,000. So,
can we have up to like say up to $1,500?
Or if it's something significantly more, materially more, like shoot an email out and we'll all write back, quickly type of thing.
Yeah, Mike, I think the main thing is that it gets invoiced separately outside that winter package. So when it comes in, it's treated as a separate invoice above and beyond what we had anticipated.
We can always ask him for a written estimate. But
like I said, he'll be here Thursday morning. We're sitting down. He needs a map of the farms. He gets confused when we talk about farms because the farmers call them one thing, we call them another. I send him one place. He said, I'm coming to your house. I'm getting a map from you with the names of the farms of what you call them. So we're always on the same page. I'm going to keep it in my truck. So we're doing that on Thursday morning. We're going over each of his hours, how much time he spent at each place, what he didn't get to, what he can kind of still give us. And then we'll be done with our 10 hours. Now, don't forget, we do also take 2 summer days. So we have summer days. And then the third part of this is I'll let Dennis, I'm not going to steal any of Dennis's thunder. When we talk about the summer tour, I have kind of a plan. So we can continue.
Okay.
So I guess to finish that vote, then I also vote yes as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Okay. So when you're ready, Dennis, honeybee update.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Just a quick update. We did. We have approved that we would be reimbursing our beekeeper to add buy additional bees and add 2 more beehives. So that he will be doing that. I got an update from him recently. He reported that the bees are doing very well. They did well over the winter. They're very active. And he's now fed them on 3 occasions since we harvested the honey last fall. To keep the bees alive, of course, we've taken their honey. When you harvest the honey, that's what they would normally have lived on through the winter. That's their food. That's why they make it. And and so when we harvested the honey, they supplement that with protein patties, bee patties that give them a winter food. He does have the 2 broods of bees ordered arriving in April, and we should expect to see that invoice from him. If I could just quickly share my screen, bear with me. Can you see that?
Yes.
These are the racks that go down vertically of the honeycombs. This is a picture of the feeding that he did. He lays those protein packs on top of those, and that's what provides the bees with their nourishment through the winter. It's fascinating to learn more about these honeybees. I mean, they, in the dead of winter and despite whatever the temperature, just they're all being huddled in there. They keep themselves warm. They generate their own heat and don't need any support other than we have to replace the food that we've taken from them. So I'm excited to get 2 new hives going this season. We had good luck last year, and we appreciate everything that Sven is doing to build these pollinators for our community. I think it's an important step in many directions. So I just wanted to update you on that.
Thank you, Dennis, and very good honey, I might add. Good tasting honey.
Excellent honey. Excellent.
Yeah.
Honey. And
Yeah.
he also with the 3rd and 4th hive, Sven said he would be bringing in his honey processor so that they can this next year we can make liquid honey, not just the honeycomb that we saw this year. It strains out the wax, and so we'll have it available in that form. We'll see what the yield is and what we get, but it's really about increasing the pollinator population in the area, and it does good for all the plants and flora and fauna. That's for sure.
Great. That's a good news topic. Thank you.
Good news topic.
Hey, Dennis,
Yes.
we had agreed as a board a couple months ago to reimburse our entomologist here for any, he wanted to expand and we had agreed to cover the cost.
That's right.
And I haven't seen anything. I don't know if he had mentioned anything to you recently.
Yeah.
You had connected me with him and asked him to share, send over any receipts. I don't think I've seen anything there yet.
No, you haven't. He has the bees on order. If memory serves me, I think it was $400. And once he gets the bees and he has the invoice to be paid, he will forward you that invoice, and that'll be somewhere sometime in April.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And I understand you got his $10 rent check.
Yeah. All paid up.
All right. Good.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. No further comment on that? All right. So we'll move on to Mr. Herco's request to us on Longshore. Mr. Herco, for the public who's listening in, his benefit, lives on basically within the Longshore farm parcel. He owns property there. Our property surrounds his, including some woods of ours that surround his property. Mr. Herco has requested that we lease him an extension of his property into our woods, where he would dry some lumber for a business that he has recently started up. We talked about this in an executive session. If I'm going to speak now for the rest of the board, but unanimously decided to say no to this for the reasons that it didn't keep with our mission of preserving farmland and preserving open space. Having someone have a business on there just didn't seem appropriate for farmland preservation to support. So I think we should take a formal vote on it now. But I'll ask if there's any other comments.
Public comment
Yeah.
in general for this topic as plus any previous topics here too?
Yeah, that might be a good, I have it written, slotted in at the end, but that's a good point, Dan. We can do that. But I just to add to that Sean and I went out to personally look the situation over, and so that's part of what our investigation entailed. So Dennis, you look like you might want to add something.
Well, I was just going to say, I think part of the topic to discuss is the fact that the farmland preservation property is a no trespassing property, and we expect neighbors to honor the fence and to honor those boundary lines. And I'm not suggesting that Mr. Herco didn't. He's been a very good neighbor for a very long time. But if we start kind of one-off unique transactions or deals or understandings with one neighbor, going onto the property for certain things, and we're telling other neighbors not to go on the property, it can become unwieldy. We need to be consistent. I think we have done a good job of being consistent over the years. Our priority is the farmer and the preservation of the farmland and the maintenance of the buffers and a good neighbor policy. And being consistent with that, I think, is about consistency. So I think that was part of the discussion about making these kinds of exceptions can become a slippery slope. We have almost 200 bordering neighbors in Lower Makefield to our preserved farmland, and amongst those 190 or 200, I'm sure there's all kinds of reasonable ideas, but we want to be cautious and stick to our mission. I think that was part of what the thinking was, or the reasoning was, in our discussion.
Yep, excellent point. Excellent. Yeah, so true. Okay, is it Erica? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Was there any public comment on this topic or anything prior?
There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll put it to a vote then. I'll make a motion that we deny the request by Mr. Herco of 1450 Dolington Road to put some lumber for drying on our property.
Second.
All in favor of denying the proposal?
All right.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
And Mike, are you going to formally then reach out to Mr. Herco?
Yes, I will
Tell
do
him
that.
of this vote?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, I will do that.
okay.
Okay, so the next topic is trees at 2037 Trowbridge or Trowbridge on Heather Ridge. Dan?
I think we're good. I think we already covered this under Sean's section.
With Sean's update. Okay, right. That did include that. Good. And also the next topic is the limbs, brush, etc., thrown onto Farm View 1.
And this was behind Greenbrier Court is the same section that we talked about on Farm View 1 as well.
Yeah.
Under Sean's section as 2.
Okay, that makes it easy. All right. Well, and so I'll take the next topic of the spring tour of farms. Traditionally, since I've joined the board, we've as a group gone out to look over the fields, one, to familiarize everybody, especially new members, with what are our fields, where they are, and two, to look at the buffer areas and whether they need cleaning, whether there's any issues with erosion. And we've usually had a couple of the farmers join us on those. I think that one thing is that I think that now with each of us having our assigned fields, I think we're more than familiar with those fields anyway. And I'll just throw it out to the board whether you feel that this year a tour is still necessary or would be helpful.
I for one find them useful to walk the fields and as a board or as a team look at circumstances or situations and discuss them and kind of share some ideas. I find it particularly useful to do that, to walk those fields with the farmers. It's a good opportunity for dialogue. It's a good opportunity to get some common understanding on some issues. I think you've done a good job, Mike, in that we have probably fewer issues this spring that maybe we haven't in other springs. But at the same time, I kind of like that tradition, in that it's a good excuse to get together with the farmers. I think we need a reason to sometimes, and it was in that context that I was going to bring up the proposal we have for some shared maintenance on the buffers. We've talked to Sam and Tim Stewart, had a nice dialogue over breakfast. Sean and I did, and I think the spring tour, quite frankly, would be our opportunity to ask of their decision. So you said you wanted to think about this, you needed to consider it.
Right.
Here we are. It's spring tour time. What's your decision? I see it as that's our opportunity to follow up.
Dennis, just very quick, if I can interject. I've had a couple of conversations with Tim Stewart as recently as 20 minutes before hopping on this call. I did make him aware that we were having tonight's call in a conversation with him, and I will have an answer by Thursday. He knows that I'm meeting with Matt on Thursday morning.
Oh, good.
Tim had a couple questions. I answered them for him. I've made myself available if he has any concerns he'd like to discuss. He had one or two questions. It sounds like he's very close to a decision, but wanted to be clear on one or two things. But his latest message was, I'll be back to you by Thursday. I did let him know that while we were just able to sit down 2 Saturdays ago and have a very nice conversation, which I learned a lot from on many aspects, we had been sitting on the estimate since 10/5. And I think, with all due respect for Corcoran, gas prices have changed, labor prices have changed. The farmers are certainly well aware of that. We owe him some type of an answer, because the size of his crew and the way he's going to handle this and his cadence of cutting grass and working with us changes if we give him the go-ahead. And he wants to jump on it early to keep it mowed down, as opposed to getting involved in the kind of higher stuff that he was involved in last time. So Tim was aware of that. I believe I'll have an answer by Thursday.
Great.
Very
Excellent. I didn't realize you had that follow-up. That's wonderful.
I
Thank you.
would have undoubtedly reached out to you if it wasn't little. I was texting
Yeah.
at the dinner table before coming in here. There was an opportunity, but I still hold a very high, prospect for us to be able to come to an understanding here and have a deal to be able to do this.
Great.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
One other thing we did learn at that breakfast, amongst many other things, one thing we did learn that everybody should be aware of: Leadham's farm is going to be fully farmed this coming year. As you know,
Really?
this is a 1,000 yard fence line from Dolington to the back. It had been farmed about 500 yards over towards Colavitas. I noticed some orange flags in the field about 2 weeks ago after line trucks had come through to get the pH levels of the soil proper, and the line trucks did the whole field, which surprised me. And I noticed some orange flags. So we asked him at breakfast about the orange flags, and he said the conservation people were out as well. They laid a strip of flags diagonal from my backyard down to Colavitas Christmas Tree Farm, which is the low point, and he can plant, he needs to leave a 30-foot area, 15 feet on both sides of the flags, but the entire rest of Leadham's will be planted this year. I forget the exact acreage that he mentioned he'd be adding on, but it was a nice acreage that he'd be adding on.
Yeah, because that was a hay field, and they had said, and it looked at to me that the hay was old. It is way past its prime. It needed to be reseeded and reworked as a hay field. And they said they don't have much of a market for hay anymore. The horses have largely moved out. So they're gonna convert that portion that was hay to the crop. I think he's doing corn this year, I think he said, but I don't recall. But yeah, and that's great that he had the conservation people come through and mark out the swale for the erosion control. I applaud Tim for doing that.
Because that was one of our concerns, that if they just went ahead and just planted everything there, that it was just waiting for erosion to happen.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So it sounds like there'll be a 30-foot area of no planting. It'll be corn this year. Dennis, you're correct. Last year was a soybean year. The only reason I know is the squirrels are ungodly real when it's corn year, and they are like 20 pounds each. So this will be one of those years. The only thing I wanted to ask, I know we learned about that information there. Does that change anything? I know that we have a difference in our spreadsheets and with the farmers as far as leasing land versus tillable land. I'm sure that was probably always considered tillable. It just was hayfield. Now it's going to be used for corn. I'm assuming it makes no change, but just wanted to bring that up.
I'm quite confident that doesn't change anything. They rent the entire field.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I think we do have a nuance here between tillable, like Sean said, between tillable and total.
But that has always been part of the tillable. I thought.
Well, that's what yeah, if you're certain about that, I'm actually right on the share drive right now, so should be able to see the total versus tillable. I'm guessing it's I don't know, it's 68 total versus tillable of 50.
So we're saying 18 acres of buffer? That's not true.
No, but
20
there's woods
feet
at the
times 1,000 feet.
there's woods at that other end. Isn't
There's
there?
some woods there too.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a huge amount though.
A few acres. Yeah, not a lot, right?
Yeah, we've always. I can go on my app and measure some acreage there in those fields. But I'm quite. I mean that by definition that a hayfield is a tillable field. It's not buffer and it's not woods. So I'd be surprised if the tillable didn't include that 50, but I'll go on the app and just do some estimating.
Okay, yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
Dennis, any reason to reach out to Bob about the change in farming plan, just as a good neighbor? If anyone's going to see additional water run, it would be that low point, down there, just to let him know that. I mean, I've never seen it farmed before. This could be the first time it's been farmed in a long time. Any reason to make that, to reach out to, or no, it's not a big deal?
No reason not to. I mean,
I would.
Certainly not a secret.
Yeah. I can't hurt to let him know. I would.
Okay. I see him out doing some pruning. Like I said, I'm working from home Thursday and Friday. If I see him outside doing some pruning, perhaps I'll take a walk down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Freedom planting. Okay,
I'm sorry, Mike. We kind of wandered off of your topic of the spring tour. So
that's fine.
If you want to get back to that.
That's fine. My takeaway from that discussion is for the spring tour, I'm not going to talk to Tim or Sam or Tom, who would be my three main candidates for going on the tour, until Friday, until he's had a chance to make his decision. And why don't you let me know, Sean, that he's made a decision and things have settled down, and then I can ask them to.
Absolutely. When I know, you all will know for sure.
Okay. And in years past, we've actually gotten on the fields and driven in Doug Riblett's old beat up Volvo one time. But I guess we'll mainly just drive to the fields and as we've done before, walk them, right? Yeah.
I think so. Did you have some dates in mind?
I
calendars?
I don't have any dates in mind, but I'll look at mine. I know that kind of in April, I'm going to be away for about 10 days, but I'll look at something and let's try to do it sooner than later before the fields are planted. And
yeah, maybe if we can have a target date and then a rain date if.
Okay.
The backup.
Mike, can we also possibly put them in order? Like maybe we can call it a focus order. I mean, I can totally see where we don't get to all 8 to 10 of these, on that day. You get to talking, it gets long, someone has to exit, whatever. If we do them in an order where if George says, hey, I really think that we should start at Stackhouse for these reasons, we put that higher on the list than maybe going and walking Farmview, 2, for instance. I mean, or Leadham's, which we just walked last year with them.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep. Okay. I just had something, I'll just bring it up now. Just I got an email just before the meeting from Mike Kirk about a neighbor, unidentified neighbor on Stackhouse that had some issues with stuff growing on our fence and brush or overgrowth starting to happen. So the fact that we didn't do maybe might be causing us some issues later.
2 thoughts there. If you can tell me who it is, I bought an industrial sized weed whacker. I'd be happy to go over with a blade on it. I'd be happy to go over and do what I can. Or 2, once we have word on Thursday about the outcome, if we have the go ahead, it could be project 1 on the buffer list for Corcoran to get started there as well.
And that's exactly what I said to Mike. I said, if she's willing to discuss it, we're more than, I figured you would, or any of us would be willing to come over there and look the situation over with her.
Absolutely. I've had 2 conversations with people over there that have come whenever I walk there, come out to the fence line and talk about it. I have a feeling I could find the house in one of 2, and I'd be happy to help. But again, on Thursday, we could be sending in much bigger forces that can take care of these problems.
Yep.
And when I get back up in April, back up there, obviously, Sean, maybe you and I could even just walk over to Stackhouse and make me familiar with it, and then I can start dealing with it appropriately.
Absolutely.
And George, what is the date that you'll be back?
Well, it depends on how many assignments you give me, But no, I'm going to be back by sometime the evening of the 3rd of April.
3rd. Okay, so no, I was just thinking about the spring tour and scheduling it.
I'll be back.
Okay. George.
As long as spring is sprung, I am fine for returning.
Okay. Yep. It's already starting, so that's good. Good. Okay, spring tour. So I'll get back to everyone. That's added action item for myself. Other business.
I have a question under other business. Has anybody heard anything about the Tolbert farm? Any news? I have none. I just wanted to see if there was any developments that anybody's aware of.
I've heard nothing. No rumors, nothing.
Okay. Okay.
And when you talked to Sam and Tim, did that come up in the conversation, Sean or Dennis Herbert? Because I know they talk to relatives every once.
I mean, they farm that now.
Right.
I mean, they lease that land from the Tolberts that's cropped. They don't know anything more than we do, other than, you hear noise, but nothing tangible.
Okay. Okay. All right. So other business is our next topic. No? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on. We'll consider that done and move on to public comment. So Erica, if there's anybody that has any public comment to this point.
There's no public comment.
Fine. All right. Well, we'll go to review of action items then. Dennis?
I captured 4. Mike, you're going to reach out to Mr. Herco after tonight's meeting to let him know of that decision.
Right.
I'm going to just take a look at the acreage on Leadham and do some calculations on the hayfield and tillable versus non-tillable. Mike, you were going to look at some dates for the spring tour. And Sean, you're going to let the board know when you have an answer from Tim Stewart.
2 things. I will let you all know when I have an answer from Tim Stewart, and I will also speak to Bob and just give him a heads up on the change in planting on Leadham's.
Thank you.
I had a couple more. Let me just see what I got. So I'm going to put the investment allocation on the agenda for September. I had that. We're all, if we have a chance, going to look at Heather Ridge trees at the stumps and let Sean know if we feel like they should be ground out or not. Dennis, you'd said you're going to re-examine Brentwood Drive on Makefield Brook, maybe go over there the next few weeks to kind of see.
You're right. Yeah, Makefield Brook. I'll take a look at that property.
Yep, Makefield Brook, and I think I got, well, Sean, you're already meeting with Corcoran, so you've told us about that tomorrow. And then, the spring tour, that's what I'm doing. Okay, yeah, I think that's it. So, if there are no other comments or actions, we can consider the meeting adjourned. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Okay, have a nice evening.
Thank you.